The dimly lit living room was heavy with tension as I stared at the phone, cradled in my trembling hands. The words I had just overheard echoed in my head like a dreadful melody, shattering the tranquility of this evening forever. Can you believe how easily I played her? That naive little wife of mine has no idea about the real estate deals or the inheritance her mother left her. Trent's voice had dripped with arrogance, clearly boasting to someone on the other end. Once I get my hands on that money, I'm out of this sham of a marriage. My heart pounded as anger and disbelief surged through me. The man I had trusted and loved for the past 5 years was nothing but a callous liar, driven by greed. How could I have been so blind? The sound of Trent's footsteps approaching from the study snapped me back to reality. I quickly switched off the phone, fighting to compose myself as he sauntered into the room. That practiced charming smile plastered across his face. "Hey, honey, who are you talking to?" he asked, his tone light and casual. I steeled myself, meeting his gaze with a coldness I didn't know I possessed. "Cut the act, Trent. I heard everything." His expression faltered for a moment before hardening into a sneer. "So you finally figured it out, did you? I have to admit, you're a lot denser than I gave you credit for." "How dare you?" I spat, fury rising like bile in my throat. "My mother just passed away, and all you care about is her money?" Trent shrugged nonchalantly. "What can I say? I'm a businessman, sweetheart. And you, well, you're just a starving artist playing at being an entrepreneur. This inheritance is the only way I'll ever see a decent return on my investment in you." The callousness of his words stung like a slap to the face. Tears of anger and hurt pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let him see me break. "Get out," I said, my voice trembling with barely restrained rage. "Get out of my house, and don't ever come near me or my family's money again." Trent let out a mocking laugh. "Or what? You'll paint me a stern picture? Face it, Marla, you're in way over your head here. Either you give me what I want from the inheritance, or I'll take you for everything you've got in the divorce." His threat hung in the air like a poisonous cloud, but I refused to back down. Not this time. With a newfound resolve burning in my chest, I met his gaze with steely determination. "Then bring it on," I said, my voice low but unwavering. "Because I'm not going to let you win this time, Trent. Not ever again." The piercing ring of my phone jolted me from the swirling vortex of thoughts that had consumed me since last night's confrontation with Trent. It was Jenna, my closest friend and the one person I knew I could turn to in this mess. "Marla? Are you okay?" Her voice was laced with concern. "I tried calling you a few times last night, but you didn't pick up." I let out a shaky breath, the weight of everything crashing down on me again. "Jenna, I don't know what to do. Trent, My voice cracked, and I had to swallow hard before continuing. "He's been lying to me this whole time, using me to get to my mom's inheritance." There was a heavy pause, and then Jenna spoke, her tone grave. "I had a feeling something was off about him. Marla, remember when I mentioned those engagements of his that ended so abruptly? I did some digging, and it seems like he had a pattern of getting involved with wealthy women, only to disappear once their money was gone." A sickening realization washed over me. Trent's casual dismissal of my art, his insistence on handling the finances, his constant belittling of my capabilities, it had all been part of his twisted game. "That bastard," I hissed, anger flaring hot in my chest. "He made me feel so small, so inadequate, all while plotting to take everything from me." "You can't let him get away with this," Jenna said firmly. "Marla, you need to fight back, gather evidence, document everything, and take that scumbag down." Her words struck a chord deep within me, igniting a fire that had been smoldering since last night's confrontation. I was done being the meek, submissive wife Trent had tried to mold me into. "You're right," I said, my voice steadier now, resolve hardening like steel. "I'm not going to let him win this time. I'll dig up every last dirty secret, every shady deal he's been involved in, and make sure he pays for what he's done." Jenna let out a soft exhale. "That's my girl. Listen, I know a private investigator who can help us get to the bottom of this. Meet me at the coffee shop in an hour, and we'll start planning our next move." An hour later, I found myself seated across from Jenna, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee doing little to soothe my frayed nerves. But as she laid out her plan, introducing me to the no-nonsense private investigator she'd brought along, A newfound sense of determination took root within me. This was war, and I was done playing the victim. Trent had made the mistake of underestimating me, and now he was going to face the consequences of his deceit. With Jenna and this investigator by my side, I was going to unravel every last thread of his web of lies, no matter how tangled or deeply buried. It was time to take back control of my life, and I was ready to fight for it with everything I had. The anticipation coiled within me as the private investigator, Jake, began laying out the initial findings from his probe into Trent's affairs. Jenna sat beside me, her expression grim as the damning evidence unfolded. "Your husband has been living way beyond his means," Jake began, sliding a stack of financial records across the table. Reckless spending, massive debts, and most concerningly a severe gambling addiction. My stomach churned as I scanned the documents, the numbers detailing Trent's staggering losses at various casinos and online betting sites. How had I been so blind to his destructive habits? "That's not all," Jake continued, his voice grave. "It seems Trent has been taking out loans against your late mother's estate without your knowledge or consent." Rage flared hot within me as the full extent of Trent's betrayal became clear. He had not only deceived me emotionally, but had also been systematically draining my inheritance, the legacy my mother had worked so hard to build. "That lying, cheating scumbag," I spat, my hands trembling with fury. "He's been bleeding me dry this whole time, all while making me feel worthless and incapable of handling my own affairs." Jenna placed a comforting hand on my arm, her eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and determination. "We've got him, Marla. With this evidence, we can take him down and make sure he never gets a single cent of your mother's money." I took a deep, steadying breath, steeling my resolve. The time for tears and self-pity was over. Trent had chosen to cross a line, and now he would face the consequences of his actions. "What do we do next?" I asked, my voice unwavering. Jake leaned forward, his expression serious. "We need to gather every shred of evidence we can find. Bank statements, transaction records, anything that implicates him in financial misconduct. Then we take it to the authorities and ensure that his access to your assets is frozen." A grim smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. "Let's do it. I want that bastard exposed for the lying, manipulative snake he is." Over the next few weeks, I dedicated myself to the task, combing through mountains of paperwork and tracking down every lead, no matter how small. Trent's facade began to crumble as the truth came to light. The secret offshore accounts, the shady real estate deals, the web of deceit he had so skillfully woven around me. And through it all, a newfound strength blossomed within me, fueled by the knowledge that I was no longer the naive, powerless victim he had tried to mold me into. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had reclaimed her power and her worth. As the evidence mounted, I could almost taste the sweet tang of justice on the horizon. Trent's world was about to come crashing down around him, and I would be there to watch, standing tall and unbroken, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The heavy oak door swung open, and I stepped into the plush office of Diana Wilkins, one of the most respected divorce attorneys in the city. Her steely gaze met mine, assessing me with a practiced eye. "Mrs. Benson," she greeted, gesturing for me to take a seat. "My associate filled me in on the details of your case. I must say, the evidence you've gathered against your husband is quite damning." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination coursing through my veins. Trent thought he could play me for a fool, but he underestimated me. Now, I want to make sure he pays for every last crime he's committed. Diana's lips curved into a thin smile. "Believe me, we'll make sure of that. With the proof of his financial misdeeds and fraud, we can not only secure a favorable divorce settlement for you, but also ensure he faces criminal charges." Relief washed over me at her words. Finally, I was taking control of my life, no longer a helpless pawn in Trent's twisted games. "What's our next move?" I asked, leaning forward eagerly. Diana's expression hardened. "First, we need to freeze all of your shared assets immediately. That way, Trent can't try to liquidate or hide anything before the proceedings begin." She slid a stack of documents across the desk. "Sign these, and I'll have the paperwork filed first thing in the morning." Without hesitation, I scrawled my signature across the pages, a sense of empowerment surging through me with each stroke of the pen. No more would I allow myself to be a victim. Excellent, Diana said, gathering the papers. Now, I suggest you move out of the marital home as soon as possible. We don't want any potential altercations with your husband once he realizes what's happening. I nodded, already picturing the look of outrage on Trent's face when he discovered his schemes had been unraveled. I'll pack my things tonight and stay with Jenna until this is all over. Diana's gaze softened ever so slightly. I know this must be incredibly difficult for you, Mrs. Benson. But I want you to know you're doing the right thing. Your husband's actions were despicable, and he needs to be held accountable. A steely resolve settled over me, hardening my features. Don't worry, Miss Wilkins. I'm not the same naive woman I was a few months ago. Trent awoke a fire in me, and I'm not going to let it burn out until I've burned his world to the ground. As I left Diana's office, I could feel the weight of the past lifting from my shoulders. No more would I cower in fear or self-doubt. I was a warrior now, armed with the truth and a burning desire for justice. And when I finally came face to face with Trent again, I would look him straight in the eye and show him the strong, unbreakable woman he had tried so desperately to crush. This time, I would be the one holding all the power. The tension was palpable as I stood in the living room, clutching the stack of evidence like a shield against the man who now regarded me with a mixture of disbelief and barely concealed fury. Trent's once charming facade had crumbled, revealing the true depths of his depraved nature. "What is all this?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing as he gestured towards the damning documents in my hands. I steeled my resolve, meeting his gaze with an unwavering determination that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "It's over, Trent. I know everything, the gambling, the debts, the loans you took out against my mother's estate. Your lies have unraveled, and you're not going to worm your way out of this one." For a moment, he seemed taken aback by the strength of my conviction, the cocky smirk faltering on his lips. But then, as if a switch had been flipped, his expression hardened into a sneer of contempt. "So the little mouse finally grew a backbone, did she?" he taunted, taking a step closer. "You really think you can take me on with a few pieces of paper? I'll bury you in court, Marla. You'll be lucky if you get a penny from your precious inheritance when I'm through with you." His words, laced with venom, might have shaken me once, but now they only served to stoke the flames of my anger, fueling my desire for retribution. "That's where you're wrong," I shot back, my voice steady and unwavering. "I'm not going to let you bully me anymore, Trent. I have ironclad proof of your misdeeds, and I've already taken steps to freeze our assets and protect what's rightfully mine." His eyes widened, the realization of his precarious situation finally sinking in. "You can't do that," he snarled, his carefully cultivated facade cracking further. "That money is mine. I earned it, manipulating you and your idiot mother into trusting me." A mirthless laugh escaped my lips at his brazen admission of guilt. "And there it is, the true face of the monster I've been married to all these years. Well, no more. I'm done being your victim, Trent." Stepping closer, I held his gaze, reveling in the flicker of uncertainty that flickered across his features. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign the divorce papers and walk away with nothing. No money, no assets, just the consequences of your own greed and depravity. Or you can fight me, and I'll make sure you end up in prison, penniless and disgraced." For a moment he seemed poised to argue, his jaw clenching with barely restrained fury. But then something in my expression must have given him pause, because he finally deflated, the fight draining from his posture. "Fine," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "Have it your way. But don't think for a second that this is over, Marla. I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me." As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph welling up within me. Against all odds, I had faced down the man who had tried to break me, and I had emerged victorious. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. Yet, as I surveyed the wreckage of my former life, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would never again be a victim, not to Trent or anyone else. From the ashes of my shattered dreams, a phoenix was rising, stronger, fiercer, and more determined than ever before. The courtroom was a battleground, the air thick with tension as I took the stand, my gaze locking with Trent's cold, defiant stare from across the room. This was the moment I had been preparing for. The culmination of months of gathering evidence, fortifying my resolve, and steeling myself for the fight of my life. Mrs. Benson, the razor-sharp voice of my attorney, Diana, cut through the silence. Please recount for the court the events that led you to initiate these divorce proceedings against your husband. Drawing a steadying breath, I began to lay out the sordid tale of Trent's deception, the lies, the manipulation, the flagrant disregard for my trust and my family's legacy. With each damning detail, I could see the jurors' expressions shift from neutral to horrified disbelief. Trent, for his part, maintained a veneer of smug indifference, as if he believed he could still charm his way out of this mess. But I knew better. The evidence was overwhelming, and this time his silver tongue would not be enough to save him. Your Honor, Diana continued, her voice ringing with confidence, we have documented proof of Mr. Benson's financial misdeeds, including unauthorized loans taken out against Mrs. Benson's inheritance, as well as a pattern of reckless gambling and accumulation of massive debts. She gestured towards the towering stacks of files and bank statements that had become my constant companions these past months. The evidence speaks for itself. Trent Benson is a con artist who sought to bleed his wife dry for his own personal gain. Trent's lawyer leapt to his feet, his face flushed with indignation. Objection! These accusations are baseless and inflammatory. But the judge silenced him with a stern look, his gaze fixed on the damning paper trail before him. Overruled. Proceed, Miss Wilkins. A ghost of a smile tugged at Diana's lips as she pressed on, methodically dismantling Trent's already crumbling defense. With each piece of evidence presented, each witness called to corroborate my claims, I could see the walls closing in around him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat, his expression grave. Mr. Benson, in light of the overwhelming evidence presented, I have no choice but to rule in favor of your wife's petition for divorce. A hush fell over the courtroom as he continued, his words ringing like a death knell for Trent's schemes. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate freeze on all of your assets, as well as a formal investigation into your financial activities by the appropriate authorities. Trent's face contorted with rage, his mask of composure shattering as he turned his venomous glare towards me. But I met his stare unflinchingly, reveling in the sweet taste of victory that had eluded me for far too long. As the bailiff led him away, his curses and threats echoing through the chamber, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle had been won, and I had emerged triumphant, my strength and determination forged in the fires of Trent's betrayal. With Diana's reassuring hand on my back, I stepped out into the brilliant sunshine, squinting against the glare but unable to contain the grin that spread across my face. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was truly free. Free from the shackles of Trent's manipulation, free to chart my own course and reclaim the life he had so nearly stolen from me. The war might not be over yet, but I had dealt a devastating blow to my enemy. And as the first whispers of Trent's downfall began to spread through the media and our once shared social circles, I knew that the tides had well and truly turned in my favor. The media frenzy was merciless, a swirling vortex of cameras and microphones that surrounded me as I exited the courthouse, the harsh glare of the spotlight searing my eyes. But I held my head high, a small, satisfied smile playing on my lips as the reporters bombarded me with questions. Mrs. Benson, how do you feel about the judge's ruling against your husband? Can you confirm the allegations of financial fraud and gambling addiction leveled against Trent Benson? What's your response to the widespread public backlash against your soon-to-be ex-husband? I paused, letting the weight of their inquiries hang in the air for a moment before responding, my voice steady and unwavering. Trent Benson is a liar and a manipulator who thought he could take advantage of me and my family's hard-earned legacy. Today's ruling is a victory for truth and justice, and a warning to anyone who thinks they can get away with such despicable behavior. The reporters surged forward, their cameras flashing like a barrage of gunfire, as I continued. For too long I was a victim, naive and blinded by his lies. But no more. I refused to be cowed or shamed by this man's actions. He made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. The words seemed to ignite a frenzy. The the journalists scrambling to capture every syllable as the sordid details of Trent's misdeeds were laid bare for public consumption. Within hours, the story had gone viral, dominating headlines and social media feeds as the once charming facade he had so carefully cultivated crumbled to dust. And as the backlash against Trent grew, fueled by the outrage of a public that had once admired him, I couldn't help but revel in a sense of vindication. This was the reckoning he deserved, the consequences of his greed and depravity laid bare for all to see. Over the following days and weeks, the fallout only intensified, rippling outward like a stone cast into a still pond. Trent's business associates and former friends distanced themselves, denouncing his actions and severing ties in a desperate bid to salvage their own reputations. Even his own family turned their backs on him, a long overdue act of contrition for the years they had turned a blind eye to his misdeeds. I watched with a sense of grim satisfaction as his parents, once so proud and doting, publicly disowned him, their voices trembling with shame and disgust. And through it all, I remained a beacon of strength and resilience, steadfastly refusing to back down or apologize for the righteous fury I had unleashed upon the man who had tried to break me. The support and admiration poured in from all corners, a groundswell of solidarity that buoyed my spirits and reinforced my conviction. I was no longer the meek, powerless victim that Trent had sought to create. I was a warrior, a survivor, and a symbol of hope for all those who had suffered at the hands of the manipulative partners and spouses. As the dust settled and the media circus moved on to fresh scandals, I found myself standing taller than ever before, a newfound sense of purpose and strength coursing through my veins. Trent might have thought he could crush me, but in the end it was his own hubris and greed that had proven to be his undoing. And as I looked towards the future, a fresh canvas waiting to be painted with the vibrant hues of my newfound independence, I knew that this was merely the beginning, the first brushstrokes of a masterpiece that would be my life, free from the shadows of Trent's deceit, and finally, truly, my own. The soft morning light filtered through the large windows, bathing the spacious studio in a warm, golden glow. I stood in the center of the room, taking in the fresh, crisp scent of newly stretched canvases and the vibrant hues of paints awaiting my brush. This was it, my fresh start, the blank canvas upon which I would paint the masterpiece of my new life. A faint smile tugged at my lips as I ran my fingers over the smooth, pristine surfaces, the ghosts of past creations whispering their encouragement. This studio, this gallery, was more than just a workspace. It was a testament to my strength, my resilience, and the unwavering spirit that had carried me through the darkest of times. The sound of the front door opening broke me from my reverie, and I turned to see Jenna striding in, her face alight with excitement. "Marla, it's absolutely perfect," she exclaimed, her eyes roaming over the meticulously curated space. "I can't believe you managed to pull all of this together so quickly." I shrugged, trying to downplay the swell of pride that bloomed in my chest. It wasn't easy, but every brushstroke, every detail was worth it. This is my fresh start, my chance to truly embrace my passion and leave the past behind. Jenna's expression softened, her gaze filled with a mixture of admiration and understanding. "You've come so far, you know that? After everything Trent put you through, most people would have crumbled. But you rose from the ashes like a phoenix, stronger and more determined than ever." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and I had to blink back the tears that threatened to well up. So much had happened, so many battles fought and won to bring me to this point. And yet, standing here in this sacred space, I felt a sense of calm and purpose that had eluded me for far too long. It wasn't easy, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. There were times when I thought I might break, when the weight of his lies and manipulation would crush me. But then I'd remember my mother and the strength she embodied, the unwavering spirit that built her legacy from the ground up. Jenna nodded, her own eyes shining with unshed tears. "That's why I named this place after her," I continued, gesturing to the elegant script that adorned the gallery's sign, to honor her memory and to remind myself that I come from a long line of strong, resilient women who don't know the meaning of the word quit. A comfortable silence fell between us, the weight of the moment hanging in the air like a tangible presence. Then, with a deep breath, I turned back to the blank canvases, my fingers tightening around the brush I held. "Enough dwelling on the past," I said, my voice ringing with renewed determination. "It's time to create something beautiful, something that will stand as a testament to my journey and the indomitable spirit that carried me through." And with that, I raised the brush, the first bold strokes of vibrant color blossoming across the pristine surface. This was my masterpiece, my magnum opus, and with each sweep of the bristles, I could feel the shackles of my former life falling away, replaced by a sense of freedom and purpose that was mine alone. As the days turned to weeks and the gallery's grand opening drew nearer, the walls became a tapestry of my triumph, each painting a brushstroke of defiance against the man who had tried to break me, a vibrant celebration of the strength and resilience that had seen me through. And when the doors finally opened and the crowd poured in to marvel at my creations, I stood tall and proud, basking in the warmth of their admiration and the knowledge that I had emerged from the ashes, a true phoenix reborn.